I'm inviting Mr. Djokovic to join me. Hello again, dear colleagues.
Вопрос от студентки. Солопекина Светлана Сергеевна.
A question from a student, Ms. Solopekina. In 2021, I wrote a thesis and I used self-citation, but anti-plagiarism did not show it as self-citation. Why could it happen? Or was it a bug in the system?
Функциональность обнаружения самоцитирований появилась в процессе 2021 года.
Self-citation appeared as a function in 2021.
Почему вообще может быть, ну, скажем так,
I could answer this question generally. Why doesn't always it show automatically? The result of automatic detection depends on two factors.
Ну, даже, наверное, от большего количества. Ну,
or even more than that. So first of all, the system has to recognize the name, the surname, and the patronymic of the author.
Бывают ошибки, в общем-то их не очень много, но иногда бывает.
Mistakes do happen. They don't happen very often, but sometimes they happen. And then experts can manually change it or add the author manually.
Так сказать, первый шаг. Второй момент.
This is the first step. As for the second step,
источников правильно написанных.
It is about metadata. The sources have to be indicated in the metadata.
Находятся, ну, на момент
If the sources
в собственной коллекции
in 2021 were in the property of your organization,
ну, то есть они
they would not be included in the database, and they wouldn't be indicated as self-citation.
Источник, посмотрев, собственно, на то, что это за источник, он его может вручную отнести к самоцитированию. Поэтому
experts manually could recognize self-citation. So, I mean, if it doesn't work automatically, experts could always do it. It's not that difficult for them.
Спасибо. Вопрос от Захарка Сильвии Васильевны, Молдавский государственный
университет. Thank you. A question from Silvia Zakharka, Moldavia National University. What tools can you suggest for self-check, including images?
Не очень понятен вопрос.
I don't really get the question.
Ну,
I mean,
давайте с простой части. По поводу
well, let's begin with the easy part. As for images, we visually check the results. If the images are the same, people see it with their eyes. Although I agree that at some complex images, it is not that clear and you need more time and effort. But we don't have software for any additional analysis. As for textual plagiarism, text-based plagiarism,
можно только с помощью системы, которая работает лучше. Ну, по нашему мнению, лучше
we can control an automatic system only with another system that works better. In our opinion, anti-plagiarism works best, so there is no other tool, I would say.
Иногда, ну, смотрите, так вот, если это не стопроцентное средство, но, допустим...
It is not 100% match, but in many cases, expert experience helps. If you know that a part of the article is borrowed from another article, and you see that it is not detected, you may ask a question, why? As for the reasons, you can turn with this question to our support. But normally experts are best at analyzing the results of the automated system.
Юрий Викторович, я так поняла, что вопрос связан, возможно, с отсутствием корпоративной версии.
Maybe this question is related to the absence of the corporate version at the university, so the author wants to check their paper. The question is what resources can be used.
Собственно, система антиплагиат
Well,
для частных пользователей, то есть тот же вход
we
через...
do have anti-plagiarism for users.
Ну, скажем так, разветвление, можно пойти в раздел,
One can visit the same website, plagiarism.ru,
организаций.
And there you have a few sections, one section for organization and the other for private users. If you subscribe, you'll be able to check your papers.
Ну, скажем так, действительно услуга, она оказывается платна. То есть это
the service is paid.
только демо-доступ, который не обеспечивает...
For free one can get only a demo access.
На него нельзя. Он служит только для, ну, скажем так, изучения...
It serves only for demonstration purposes, just getting to know the functionality of the system. But the real results are available only if one pays for the subscription.
Спасибо. Еще один вопрос от студентки.
Thank you very much. One more question from our student, Татьяна Рожковская, also about the free version. Are you planning to expand the functionality of the free version?
А текст проверить для публикации в журнале, например, надо. Было бы неплохо добавить хотя бы анализ документа на наличие маскировки заимствований, чтобы было видно, где нужно
Could we maybe add at least identifying and highlighting the places where the text has to be corrected? Well, actually, we are planning to move in a different direction. We are not going to expand the demo access, the free access. Most likely, we're going to narrow them down. First of all,
демо-доступе не обеспечивается полное качество проверки. И если речь
it is related to the fact that the free access does not allow for the high quality of check.
Чтобы вы приносили какую-то справку.
All journals have to do their own plagiarism detection, so it's up to the journal. The journals have to provide for that.
Именно так и поступают. Поэтому, если с вас в журнале требуют какую-то проверку или справку,
so if it is something that journals or editorials
ну, скажем так, серьезно задуматься о том, в правильный ли журнал вы подаете.
Please think about the quality of this journal.
Что касается самопроверки, ну,
as for self-check,
наверное, в каких-то ситуациях имел бы смысл сделать такую проверку. Но
maybe in some situations, such check
на самом деле,
is needed.
Если анализировать аналоги, то это одна из, ну, а может быть и самая недорогая система.
I would say that anti-plagiarism is the cheapest system.
Одна из самых недорогих в мире.
If we calculate it by one document checked, it's one of the cheapest ones in the world. So I can't suggest any other cheaper versions, and anti-plagiarism cannot become even cheaper. If that is okay, I wanted to add,
вообще наводит на мысль.
if you want so eagerly to check your own document for masking plagiarism, that leads to some thoughts. Елена Кондрашкова, the Altai Agrarian University. What should students and their supervisors do in practice if, after the thesis or the graduation paper is
Но при написании статьи
presented, it is recommended for publication, but when the article is published, the check shows full plagiarism. Of course, these texts are already in the database because the graduation paper has been published. Thank you very much. This is a great question. Actually, the system doesn't show it as plagiarism. She just finds a source that has a lot of matches with the text that you are checking. There is nothing scary about it. A graduation paper is not a publication. Master's thesis or PhD thesis is not a publication.
Любой из диссертаций не является препятствием для публикации.
So having a diploma or having a thesis does not inhibit the text to be published separately as an article.
Вида публикации, который вы выбираете. Что мы рекомендуем? Мы рекомендуем
Our recommendation is the following.
в журнал,
When you send
в сопроводительных
the article to a journal, please accompany it with an explanation. Explain that this work is based on your graduation paper, for example, which was presented at this or that university in this or that year. It is very polite, I would say. It's good style to indicate that.
Никто не может обязать журнал, то есть нужно понимать, что
Nobody can force a journal
редакция журнала
to publish this paper. So we can understand that the editorial of the journal can take a position.
варьироваться в довольно широком смысле. То есть требование журнала может быть: мы не публикуем дипломные работы, или мы не публикуем материалы.
So the journals can have their own requirements, like we never publish graduation papers. I know journals,
материалы
they
обнародованные в
don't
формате
publish materials published as preprints.
Вы не сможете.
They do have this position, and you won't be able to change it.
Нужно вступить в переписку, в переговоры. Эти
Of course, you have to negotiate.
шансы, что вы не сможете.
You have to find out this position, but the chances are high that you won't be able to convince the journal.
Ну, скажем так,
The current situation with the academic publication is the following, that the author, especially if the article is good, the author has a big choice among journals. From what I see, if you don't get into one journal, you will be accepted in another journal.
Тактика работы автора.
And this is a normal tactics of work.
Список, начинаете с первого.
You just build a list. You start with the first. If they say no, you go to the second. It is okay. Everybody works that way. The most important thing is not to send, not to
по той или иной причине. Все что угодно может быть.
Submit the same paper to many journals.
Отправляете в следующий.
Don't get anxious here. Just go to the next journal if you are rejected. And I'm sure you will be a success.
Спасибо. Еще один прям масштабный вопрос.
Another big question from Ajas Mukhanov. How can we detect falsified research?
Единого рецепта нет.
Well, there is no single recipe for it. There are certain characteristics all the time.
Такие очевидные вещи. Например, вы встречаете
As for the evident ones,
и текст.
You may find two texts, and the later text
примеры уже, я бы даже сказал, ставшие классикой.
Is differentiated by a few corrections. There are classical examples now.
Заменена на шоколад, и получилось
in one of the texts,
очевидно, что
in one of the texts, by auto replacement, the sausage is replaced into chocolate.
является.
But of course, this other work with auto replacement is falsification.
Вызывает серьезные сомнения в том, что она не.
If we are politically correct, it causes a lot of concerns. This is how we can put it.
То же самое. Если у вас есть две публикации, и в одной публикации это изображение описывается одним образом, а изображение одно и то же, другое, другим,
publication it is described in one way, and in the other the description is different,
так сказать, вызывает серьезные сомнения.
Then at least one of these publications causes a lot of concerns. It can be falsified.
Признаков может быть много. Табличные данные. Завтра, я так, насколько знаю по программе, об этом будет говорить Андрей Ростовцев.
As far as I know, Andrei Rostovtsev tomorrow is going to talk about that. The same table data can be shown in different academic papers and different dissertations and different articles and refer to different objects. This is also another indicator of falsification.
Спасибо. Абрамова Екатерина.
Thank you very much. Екатерина Абрамова, PhD student at ZapGo. Anti-Plagiarism marks combinations of 4 words as plagiarism.
Чаще всего,
What should we do with it?
чаще всего это даже не в предложениях дело,
Most often, it's not even about the words, it's about
терминах, которые состоят из
the
большого количества
terms
слов.
that
Действительно, есть
consists
терминология, которая
of a number
сложившаяся,
of words.
и это такие
That's
длинные
true that we do
словосочетания,
have
и
this
они
set
могут быть существенно
terminology.
больше 4 слов.
Sometimes it can be even longer than 4 words,
10-12 слов
up to
вполне может
10,
быть.
12 words.
Скажу честно, это пока проблема, причем проблема
It's a problem for now.
не только антиплагиата, это общемировая проблема.
And it's not just a problem for anti-plagiarism, it's an international problem. In our jargon, we have rubbish sources.
Одного и того же термина, ну и в принципе у отчета возникает некрасивый вид,
which are referenced just because of
если не обращать внимания на
only
процесс,
one
производить
word.
нормальную экспертизу, то такие вещи они
If we
просто
do a normal
отсеиваются и не влияют на принятие
expertise,
решения.
then all of these
Если говорить о каких-то автоматизированных решениях,
is removed. If we talk about automated solutions, just recently
внутреннюю постобработку отчета, когда
we launched
источников дополнительно
post-processing of the report when the list of references is analyzed separately, and special algorithms based on machine learning
которые, скорее всего, относятся к мусорным источникам. Если вы
try to get rid of these rubbish resources.
антиплагиата можно перейти на
In the anti-plagiarism report, for example,
удаленные источники, там иногда бывает
one could include
это вот как раз то, что
removed sources, and there can be quite a lot for even one paper. That means that the system automatically removed these points from the list. This problem is far from being solved, however.
Есть два очень близких вопроса по самоцитированию.
There are two questions that are close to each other about self-citation. I'm going to merge them. Ivan Korobeinik is asking, is there any digital threshold for self-citation, or is it up to the editorial to set it? And a related question by Елена Пустовалова. What is the percentage of excessive self-citation in the humanities?
Да, спасибо за вопросы. Смотрите, во-первых, конечно, от характера статьи это очень сильно зависит. Здесь даже не вопрос
цитирования, а вопрос the article, you mean. It's not even about citation. It is about the percentage of the original text.
То, что, на наш взгляд, имеет смысл действительно оценивать в статье,
This is what we believe. As for what has to be analyzed in every article, it is the original text. We strongly believe so. However, the approaches can be different for articles. The original text there has to be bigger. If it is a review,
в общем-то, эти требования к доле оригинального текста могут быть существенно ниже.
Then the share of the original text can be smaller.
Ограничение на самоцитирование, если честно,
As for limitations for self-citation, I don't think that introducing a limitation is meaningful.
Таким неким висящим в воздухе ограничением.
Introducing it as just a limit, I don't think it is necessary. At the same time, I don't see the approach that would enable us to analyze the share of the text meaningfully. It could be just a voluntary decision of any journal or a chair or an organization.
Подвести под этот процент, под эту долю какую-то научную базу, пока мне не
It will be hard to find the academic, the scientific ground for this.
Требований по доле оригинального текста в статьях мы исследования опросили журналы.
For the rules for the share of the original text,
находится в стадии подготовки к публикации. Нам
we have organized a survey, and we're planning to publish it.
В этом вопросе, это я так забегая вперед, пока не могу.
But I can't say that all the journals have a consensus about that.
Спасибо за ответ.
Thank you very much.
Про поиск изображений.
We have a question about image search.
Определяет фальсификацию. Какова ответственность для лиц, авторов
You have been
публикации,
talking about the falsification of images.
Доступ к системе антиплагиат позволяет сличать изображения.
First of all, how authentic, how positive is it, and what level of anti-plagiarism has it? Let us begin with the last question.
Мы ее сейчас
This function is not accessible right now. We install it by demand.
в докладе.
If you remember what I spoke about in my report, in my talk.
Сейчас, одну секунду.
Sorry, just a second.
Стакан воды пересыхает в горле.
Colleagues, could you please bring me a glass of water? Thank you.
Продолжу ответ. Если говорить... Спасибо. Спасибо, прошу прощения, технический момент.
Sorry for such a technical break.
Сейчас будет легче. Итак, поэтому, если вам эта функциональность интересна, обратитесь, пожалуйста, и мы в ваш доступ рассмотрим.
Something you want, please turn to us. We will consider enabling it for you.
Как я уже говорил,
as for how the images are compared, as I said before, the final word is by the experts.
А мы бы потом на взгляд не сказали бы.
But we haven't had a single case when the system told us these images are the same, and then we looked at the images and said, no, they're different. Sometimes it is just very complex. I mean, the image is just too complex. I had such cases in my practice.
Сегодня не стал показывать для экономии времени.
I didn't show it today to save the time. An image of an insect was found in an article which had 78 images of insects, which are very similar to each other. So that's a hard work.
Быстрее человека. Вот. Поэтому
the system finds it much faster than a human being.
Ответственности, вот это вопрос на самом деле непростой. Насколько я понимаю, четко формализованного меры ответственности на уровне организации за то, что делать с ученым, который фальсифицировал результаты.
As for the repercussions, I think it's up to every organization to decide on what they do with the academics
условиями в разных организациях. Я думаю, что они серьезно отличаются.
To have done academic misconduct.
Получил деньги, материальные средства за работу, которую не
выполнил. Он фальсифицировал. The thing is that the employees received money for the work they never did. They falsified the results. Imagine that it's not an academic paper.
На строительстве,
for example, he or she worked as a building engineer and never did it properly. What is the responsibility of this worker that they falsified their work?
Какая мера ответственности
будет в той ситуации, will be in criminal court.
медицинского исследования?
If the results of a medical survey are falsified, they can also lay the ground for making important decisions. We all know the case when the COVID research was falsified. So, because of it gave rise to the wrong tactics of treating people, and it could lead to deaths. Well, as for the responsibility, I think firing the person is the minimal measure that can be taken, but anyway, it's up to the organization. It could also be taken to court.
Коллеги, у нас остается еще пара минут.
Colleagues, we have a couple more minutes.
Только что буквально есть несколько вопросов по цитированию.
There are a few questions about citations.
Why
Why doesn't the system always recognize citation? Although I have quotation marks, I don't change the text, and all the works are available online. And a similar question on citations. Journals require 80% of originality, and citations decrease the originality. The article is not published.
Цитат.
As for citations, the simplest version, the simplest thing to do is to turn to our support at antiplagiarism.ru. Our colleagues will help you sort it out. Sometimes it's a mistake in the system, and with this feedback, we learn. My colleagues from our IT department say that it helps them to find bugs, and this is a normal way of perfecting the system. So it can be our bad, it can be our bug. As for journals and the threshold for the originality, I agree with you. Well, in my personal opinion, sometimes these requirements are too harsh. For example, I don't know how a legal journal can require 80% of originality.
Объемных цитат, и без них не обойтись. Мне не очень это понятно. Но повлиять на позицию журнала в этом отношении такой возможности нет. Единственная возможность...
We can't influence the position of the journals, however. Well, the only influence would be not to turn to journals with such hard requirements and go to the journals with more reasonable requirements.
Областей знаний, в которых работа основана на анализе тех или иных литературных источников.
It is especially true for the areas where we use a lot of resources and we work with texts, mostly humanities and law. I think again that this threshold is too high, but it's the affair of the journal. We can't influence them in any way.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Another question from Olga. Is the anti-plagiarism system somehow related to the international tools?
Заимствование антиплагиат не связан. Мы связаны с зарубежными поставщиками информации. Мы заключаем с ними договоры, получаем информацию. Ну вот один из примеров. Один из крупнейших издателей научной информации в мире.
We are related to Wiley because we communicate with them and collaborate with them every day. We index their articles in anti-plagiat. We are not supported though by any other systems.
Звягина Екатерина Владимировна, какие государственные или региональные нормативные документы вузы и редакторов проверять
legislations and norms on different levels require to check articles for plagiarism. Well, I don't remember exactly the documents, but I remember that there are requirements for journals to be the part of the attestation committee list.
Дат выпуска я сейчас не вспомню. То, что касается...
I don't remember exactly the number of journals.
Правило, если мы говорим о...
That is, if we talk about articles.
Особенно системах научного цитирования, то...
If we discuss international systems, quotation systems,
журнал был включен
then to be included into one or another systems, you have to comply with the requirements and use the automated
Для других типов работы
plagiarism detection systems.
требования.
Well, it depends on the character of the work, guidebooks or scientific works, etc. Another question from Ekaterina Vladimirovna. Why during the sanctions period the price per
происходящих изменений очень многие
поставщики на информационные
услуги повысили свои цены.
Well, a lot of providers have raised their prices. I won't be naming them, but all of them have augmented the prices because the prices have grown everywhere.
Интересный вопрос от Лысенко Александры Григорьевны.
Александра Лысенко
Начальник
asked an interesting question.
к эксперту вуза.
Are there any requirements for an expert
Хороший вопрос.
at the university?
Требований, насколько мне известно, нет.
There are no formal requirements as far as I know.
Требований, ну, скажем так, мне кажется,
As
что
for the
эксперта может называться
informal
человек, который
requirements,
действительно
then we know that to be called an expert, one has to
хотя бы, так сказать, на приемлемом уровне.
be
Был такой вопрос, он вот и на
skillful and provide a relevant level of expertise in a specific area.
Ну, я не знаю, мне кажется, что для начала
Why do you consider expert? I think that
и поработать
you have
на
to
вебинарах компании «Антиплагиат», вот
work with Anti-Plagiarism, to attend our seminars and trainings,
можно бесконечно,
but then
почти в любой области.
there is always room for perfection, right? And I guess in every area there are a lot of requirements, but there is no unified certification.
И заключительный вопрос на сегодня. Байрамян.
And maybe the last one for today, Roxana Minikonovna from the High School of Economics.
Текста, представляющего собой синтез авторских разработок в формате диалога двух ученых. Данный текст имеет при проверке в системе антиплагиат публикации данных идей ранее
provides a dialogue between the author and another writer. It does not have a very high percentage of originality, but this is a quite original format as such. How do we deal with that?
Нужно обсуждать журнал.
Well, it's a tricky question, and you have to address the journal itself. It is up to the editor-in-chief, I guess.
Насколько формат.
It depends not on the copyright, but on the internal policy of the journal.
Фактором для принятия решения
Sometimes the originality of the format can be an important factor, but the question has to be examined thoroughly. And I cannot give you an answer here and now. Which is essential, I think, is to inform the reader and, of course, the publishing house on where the ideas used in the material were previously, have been previously published. And I think that would be ethically correct, that these used ideas were published there and there before. And that would be a nice step towards solving some of the ethical issues. Because ethical issues mostly concern the hidden information. If you don't hide anything, then it's up to the editor.
Юрий Викторович, большое спасибо.
Юрий, thank you very much for answering these questions.